Have you guys ever done an avalanche safety course? I remember the guy teaching the first one I took. He had this great line. There is nothing more dangerous than a little bit of information. It's a similar idea in the investment world.
What's?
Oh, I have a new foolproof smoothie recipe.
Oh.
What makes it foolproof?
Okay, and what's the goal of the smoothie, right? Like, is it macros? Is it just for a smoothie?
Deliciousness.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not putting spinach and chia seeds in it.
All right.
Um,
We're a foodie podcast now.
Okay. Out of necessity, I had to invent this particular recipe because I did not have the other things I was using before. Okay, so you take frozen fruit, but it's got to be half frozen, like semi-thawed, but not fully thawed. I've been using peaches and strawberries or peaches and raspberries. Good combination. Okay. And then vanilla yogurt, the like full fat 10% vanilla yogurt, and that's it. Nothing else. And then if it's too frozen, it won't blend. It just turns into like a weird icy mess. And if it's too thawed, you don't get this like, it's almost like a frozen drink, like one of those Bellinis. Is the consistency of it, or like frozen yogurt. And it's so good. Just 3 ingredients. You could do whatever fruit combination you want. But essentially, like, no liquid, no orange juice, definitely no vegetables. Daniela says, my wife says, you should take this opportunity to make it more nutritious. And the kids will fight over each other for like refills of the smoothie. It's so good. And all you need is thick vanilla yogurt, because that's where like the sweetness comes in, vanilla, and fruit. It's amazing.
Pretty good.
Do you freeze, like when it's blueberry season out here or strawberry season, do you usually buy flats and then freeze it and just keep it for the smoothies?
We take big buckets and we go to the farm and we'll pick whatever, 20 pounds.
Nice.
And then we will probably eat them all before they get frozen. We used to freeze them, and then we have a bigger family now, so that doesn't happen. But the picking is still fun. I don't think it's any cheaper. It's just fun to go.
Oh, this Thanksgiving, when I was in Nelson with my girlfriend and her family, we did pumpkin smashing.
Okay.
So there were swords.
Oh, nice.
And there were spears. And they were throwing axes. And a full crate of pumpkins. And about 30 of us just sliced and smashed. And it was fun. It was quite fun. And the deer would eat everything. So it was great. It was like an auto compost.
Who brought the swords?
The host.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Kai's uncle. It was good. Good time.
This just tells me that I need to get some swords.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Spears.
Yeah. It was brilliant.
I'd be scared with having swords around and
We have to have
young
a very,
kids.
very controlled environment in terms of, all right, this one person.
Sorry,
Foam
I
swords.
forgot my life. I can't have swords. No, I'm sorry.
Maybe when they're a bit older.
Maybe when one of them moves out, one in particular moves out, and then the rest of us can have swords around. What are we talking about today?
AJ, you the topic.
I didn't know I was leading the podcast.
Yeah.
this time.
No, this is you.
I guess a riff off of our last discussion pertaining to goals. I think it'd be good to speak about the goal setting process. And I guess in relation to finance, there's an element of where you can do things on your own or look to coordinate with a team to help you accomplish said goals. So I think there's a tendency where some can say, well, I'll just do it on my own. And essentially there are many platforms where you can do that online. But I think there's an element for the consideration of doing it together as a team in which there allows an opportunity for conversation. Because if you leave it as yourself individually, there's not an element of, well, there can be a lesser element of accountability. You can just figure out your own goals, like, okay, I want to accomplish this. And then you don't have a mechanism to determine, like, is that truly a good goal? Is that tested that that's a good goal to have? And whether or not it is attainable as well or too far-fetched. So I think the element of working with, in our particular case, an advisory team allows more of that conversation sounding board element of the goal setting process. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's sometimes an infatuation with being able to do it on your own. And when I was younger, I 100% wanted to figure out the investment stuff all on my own and figure out how to, set the goals, and I don't need anybody. Until you really start to like take the courses and understand just the variety and complexity of what is out there and how that can be taken advantage of, how it should be taken advantage of. I think, unfortunately, how oftentimes because of neglect and because of ease, it's not taken advantage of, even in our own profession, when certain shortcuts are taken. And so I think being with a team that you trust, that if you've been referred to, or even if you have a team that you feel comfortable referring others to, is huge, and it speaks volumes about the ability of that team, but then also the ability of the experience in terms of how you're able to manage your finances and the faith and trust that you have within that process. That can probably help you sleep a little better at night when you know that you have, as we've talked about in past podcasts, this understanding of the process, of the goals, your why, and then being able to see that through.
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind. One is, it would seem to me it is an act of humility to say, look, I recognize I may not know everything about this, or to say there may be things about this that I don't even know I don't know, right? And just so I'm going to seek advice, and I'm going to talk to a professional, and perhaps there's something they can add. And I think there's another element, which is things sound differently. Things sound differently. Hold on. Ideas sound different when you say them out loud to a different person as opposed to when they live inside your head.
Right. I totally agree.
And
because it sounds like a great idea when you're just saying it to yourself.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. It'll work.
Yeah.
But go on, continue.
No, I mean, that's it. That's 100% it. Just right there is that there is a much lower bar to which you will hold your own ideas that you don't even say out loud. And it is much easier to do something that is silly or subpar or not optimal without that check and balance of just like even your own ears hearing your ideas out loud, and then the next level of someone else hearing your ideas and knowing that you have to say something out loud. You will probably, at least myself, I would edit my own thoughts more to have a more well-reasoned and thought-out plan or set of ideas or whatever it is than if it's just me left to myself.
I think it's neat in our culture in which we have the accessibility to information and different ideas. I think of like this do-it-yourself kind of opportunity. When you look on YouTube, like if you're not a mechanic, you can look on YouTube how to learn to change your own oil. And I think it starts off with a good intent. Is like, I'm mastering a new skill or getting appreciation of a skill that I didn't have before. I think just even doing something as basic car maintenance as changing your own oil. You do it yourself. There's an edifying nature to it. Like, oh, I did something that I didn't normally do. And now I'm more aware and appreciate how this mechanism works. And I think when one perhaps starts off on their own of like, okay, I'm going to step out of my own zone of not investing at all to try one of these online platforms and test some ideas out. You may have some early success, and then you might also get humbled along the way. But I think as a recognition of humility is like, hey, I have a better appreciation of this, but recognize I can't do it on my own. Just same thing with a car. I drive a sports car. I appreciate driving it, but when something breaks down, oh yeah, I can look it up on YouTube to try to fix it. But am I going to cause more good or am I going to cause more harm? Knowing my mechanic ability, I'll probably cause more harm. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of like the do-it-yourself culture and where the limitations are in terms of the
as somebody who's made a very poor vehicle investment, not even I'll pitch it to myself as an investment. It's got a very good deal on a vehicle. I'm not going to say what type of vehicle it was between a car and a motorcycle, but the fact that I've carried that distinction should help our listeners know a little bit about what that was. For the 3 weeks that I had this vehicle, 2 weekends it was in my garage getting fixed up and played with before it eventually, ended up crashing. It was a motorcycle, so I was the only rider who was affected. But I think I enjoyed the process of fixing it and doing it myself because, I saved a lot of money. There was the potential for me to be able to sell it the day that I crashed it for a lot more. Unfortunately, the nature of the crash was virtually...
I'm glad you're okay.
Oh, 100%. But the nature of the crash was virtually uncontrollable. It was a clean title bike, but it was very obvious that it had been in an accident before. Had I known a little bit more about the nature of what to look for, then that would have been something. The person who so what happened is the throttle opened up and it just went straight up underneath me at a stoplight.
Okay.
And when somebody bought it off me for parts to rebuild, he's like, yeah, no, the throttle assembly wasn't from the bike. So it's like, that's a bit of a scary thing to have go wrong. But I think part of my reason for indulging in that risk was because I was the only person who was going to be affected by it. Same thing when it comes to investing. It's very easy, if you're the only person who's going to be affected by it, to think, yeah, I can try to sell myself. Like, sweet, if I profit from it, brilliant, I get all of it. But as soon as you have other people in that car that you're going to be driving, now there's a bit more of a risk. If I have a passenger on the back of that bike, I don't ride motorcycles anymore, mostly because I want the people who love me in my life to keep on loving me and not stress them out. But when you have dependence on a decision, your risk tolerance should go down a lot, and you should think a lot more, okay, who is the person who I want to entrust this with? And I think that's a beautiful thing about our profession, is that we get to work with people. Obviously, our whole ethos is Servium, right? For us to serve our clients so that their money can serve their goals and their goals can serve the good. And I think being able to live that through and through is a really awesome thing to be able to do.
I like what you had mentioned there is, and I'm just contemplating as to how you'll just do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then once you start introducing and mature and introduce a family to your life, the importance where it's not a decision only for yourself, but it's for many people that you love more than yourself.
Yeah. And that's why I don't get a bike now, because my girlfriend would leave me. And I wouldn't blame her. I think that the fact that I got one in the first place, I think showed what I thought. Well, yeah. Like just my perception of risk involved with the bike. But then I think it was also a bit like, wait a minute, no, like, sure, my view of this risk is very low, but there were a number of people in my life who were like, no, that risk is extremely high. And being 21, what's the front part of your brain that assesses
Prefrontal
risk?
cortex?
Yeah, was not fully developed. So,
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah. Have you guys ever done an avalanche safety course?
No. Sorry?
Avalanche
Avalanche
safety
safety-
course?
No, I think I've probably seen a YouTube video on it and taking a parcel of snow and testing it.
I remember the guy teaching the first one I took. He had this great line. And I think it's common to other things too, but this is probably the first time I heard it. And it is especially true for going out in the mountains in the winter, that there is nothing more dangerous than a little bit of information. Right. For the person who knows nothing about avalanches, they say, I'm just going to stay out. This is way too risky. I could die. I'm not even going to venture into the backcountry in the mountains in the winter. But for someone who's done a weekend avalanche safety training course, this person has a little bit of information, and they're full of confidence, and they are likely going to be overconfident in their ability to judge conditions, in their ability to determine whether this is safe to tackle this slope on skis or not, without having done more training and learning and knowing how to read the snowpack and all of those kind of things. So I think it's a similar idea in the investment world, is that there is nothing more dangerous than a little bit of information. Because someone who knows nothing about allocating capital will say, well, I shouldn't do this. I should trust a professional. But for someone who's been watching a lot of discount brokerage ads who make it seem as easy as possible, anyone can do it, and it's gamified so that you do a trade and fireworks go off. I've never done these things, but
it can be portrayed in that way.
that's my impression of it.
Right.
It looks so easy, anyone can do it, and they neglect to tell you that, for instance, if you were to become a fully trained, professional person, there are thousands and thousands of pages of textbooks you could study to be like fully competent and, earn your CFA. Not to say that you have to have a CFA to invest well, but that there is a significant depth of knowledge, and there is a significant value in experience of having gone through the ups and downs of these things that you take for granted. And it is so easy to make a wrong decision when you aren't aware of, you don't have the full picture of risks. You don't even know what you're looking for in trying to find good investments. You're reading some message board somewhere, you're getting tips or whatever. You can't even judge whether any of this is good advice or not, but it is so accessible and so easy that I think you're very likely to have a negative experience in that situation. Yeah. So as you say, I don't know what you said, Emerson, but
well, it's an interesting point, John, because I think the other element to that is, what is the purpose for your investing on your own? If it is legitimately part of your financial plan, okay, that might be a little bit of a big risk to be taking on. But if it is just, say, somebody who is very comfortable in an industry or has their feet on the ground in a given area of commerce, and they're able to say, hey, this company is doing a really interesting thing. Yeah, I will put some money into that just because I think it's good, want to support it, or think the returns are good. That's legit. I think the big issue of having being your own investment advisor when it comes to money is, if your goal is just to make money, you're going to be chasing the things that have gone through the roof. You're going to be chasing things that are likely overvalued because you're going into it with this all about me mentality, and FOMO is going to take over, and you're going to be the definition of the whole class of behavioral finance.
Yeah, unless you've had training and you can know how to read financial statements with competence, and unless you know where to look for these documents, annual reports and 10K filings and all these things, and you've got some background in determining what makes a good business or not makes a good business, you're liable to see markets as just a casino. Yeah. Place to gamble.
Yeah, which essentially the do-it-yourself kind of endeavor could be as like just a form of entertainment, just to try something new. And then you have to think of like the decision-making process when they choose to buy their first stock. It could just be, hey, I read it on a message board, I saw it on Reddit, I heard it from a friend, and then
had
if
a great
you think
chart.
of it as a foundation of planning a financial future, I don't know if that's a good foundation versus looking all the information that's available and just assess things from a financial perspective of whether or not it's a good business and has good opportunity.
And I think the litmus test for that is, what's the great book on value investing by Benjamin Graham? The Intelligent Investor.
Yes.
He describes speculation as somebody who's buying something with the sole intent of somebody else paying more for it than he did. Whereas the investor is somebody who buys something for less than it's worth. So I think a good way of assessing for yourself, if you're listening to this, or if you know somebody who's doing this stuff, is to ask them, well, why are you buying this? Because do you think that it's actually less than it's worth? Is that an opinion?
Do you have any idea of what it's worth?
How do you quantify that?
How can you begin to conceptualize it?
Yeah.
I'd imagine most is like, I buy it now because I think it's going to be worth way more later.
Exactly.
And then the underlying why is like, I don't know, I just have a feeling.
Yeah.
Or just the general sentiment as opposed to the underlying
trends,
business reasons.
The momentum's going higher. Yeah. Look at this chart.
Right. Which is speculation, which if you want to speculate, don't get me wrong, you 100% can.
Yeah.
But that's not a plan. That's more of a reaction. It's likely, as I said, that's why we have behavioral finance.
I would distinguish the speculation from gambling. I don't agree with Benjamin Graham. I think you should call it gambling.
I'd like to hear this.
Everything we do in life is speculation, right? I speculate that I'm going to get in the car and not get in a car accident today. Otherwise, I would not be getting into that car, right? I speculate that I'm going to eat this food and I'm not going to choke on it. I'm going to chew it well. But there's a risk, right? With everything we take and everything, there is some level of speculation. An investor speculates on the future. I don't think speculation is bad. I think that's the wrong word. I think gambling is bad.
I'd create the distinction between speculate, which I think has this connotation of embedded uncertainty, where you can't necessarily be certain about it, as opposed to anticipate, which is there is a more than likely chance that this thing will happen. Like
we could probably do a whole podcast thing on speculation versus investing.
Yeah, I'd say
or gambling versus investing.
Yeah.
I think speculation is more like a guess. I don't have strong foundation as to the underlying reason.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing.
I'd say speculation in the context that Graham is talking about is much more related to not having a reason for it. Gambling is like the far extreme of that. Then you'd have speculation. You're doing something, but you don't necessarily have a reason for it. Then you have anticipation. I have a reason to believe that this is whatever. And then you have certainty, which is, I have full reason and whatever like this mathematical or scientific fact might be.
Yeah. So it's probably just semantics that I'm
Probably,
bickering
yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. But we could do a whole thing on
Yeah.
speculation versus
I'd be happy to. That'd be
investing.
fun.
So what I'm thinking is, when does someone make the transition from perhaps starting as a do-it-yourself endeavor of investing to now enlisting an advisory team or start building out an advisory team pertaining to...
This is starting to sound like an infomercial.
Well, I was just thinking...
James, I don't do this.
Well, the thing is, like, when you do it yourself, it's usually... I'm thinking of myself. When I first did it myself, it was just for myself. Like how
Yeah.
you gave in the motorcycle a story.
Yeah.
It was just affecting yourself. But I think the importance to consider the possibility of enlisting professional help is now when your responsibility shifts to more than just myself.
Yeah.
Now, family, there's an element of maturity where my decisions not only affect myself, but affect all those that I love around.
Yeah. Well, I'd say when it pertains to others or when it will have a material impact on my life, I think is when you should start to think about having that conversation. Because you can, and Sean, correct me if you have a different opinion, I'd be very happy to hear it. If you have like, as a young person who's making, I don't know, $1,000 a week, if you want to put a couple weeks worth of money into a do-it-yourself broker, by all means, I think that's totally fine because that can be a great learning pond in terms of how to look for value, if you're doing it well, how much time it might take, and those various different things. But I think once you've maybe saved up, I don't know, a half year's worth of wages, it's like, all right, we've worked for a half year on this. This isn't just stuff that I can make back within a month. That's, I think, where you'd start to want to
Make the
examine.
transition. Or
Exactly.
consider the transition.
Yeah, just consider it in terms of something that's a little more safe. Like, hey, maybe I'll keep aside, I mean, the Benjamin Graham rule is like 10% of money for speculation to have fun with, to know, hey, maybe this can go up, maybe this can go down, whatever. If you have 10% of your money set aside and it goes up 2, 3, 4 times, that is a substantial increase in your portfolio. But the goal of your portfolio, if it's a portfolio, should be to be put to good use, should be for some future thing, as we have it in our podcast. Well, what is money? It's a means of exchange, it's a placeholder of value, it's a bridge over time. That's what that portfolio should be set aside for. It shouldn't all just be for gambling or speculation, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah. Well, there's no way to gain experience until you actually just start something.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think you're right there. And there's no better way to learn how little you know about something until you actually take it on.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that, I 100% agree with you, right? I have a saying that, and this is very true of the investment world, the poison is in the dose.
Yeah.
So it's not that speculation is necessarily bad. It's how large it is relative to your net worth and your savings. So from someone starting out in life, they don't have dependents, they're interested. Absolutely, that person should take some of their savings, could take some of their savings and do their own investing for the experience of it because they have an interest in it. And then they can start to learn along the way. Definitely, that is absolutely a path. But as people begin to take more and more of their net worth, becomes more significant and material part of their lives, they should at least get an outside pair of eyes on what they're doing. And someone could say whether they're completely off base or whether they're on the right track or what are the things to think about for what that right track could look like. Because what is the Warren Buffett's saying? That it's only when the tide goes out you see who's swimming naked.
Yeah.
Which is when markets are going up, it's hard to make a wrong decision. And you don't realize the risks that you have accumulated in your portfolio to one particular,
sector, idea.
Yeah, exactly. Theme,
geography.
idea.
Yeah.
You think that I've got this diversified group of businesses, and someone else looks at it and says, look, these are all oil field service companies. And if oil price goes down, you are going to lose a lot of money, or your portfolio is going to decline significantly in value. You should think about making some changes unless that is the risk you would like to bear, in which case continue as you're doing. But some of those nuances do take an outside pair of eyes. So it's not that a person can't do themselves or shouldn't do it themselves. It's that the amount that they do themselves should be proportionate to the risks they're willing to bear, and that they should at least have some checks along the way from other people who can determine whether they are really on the right path or whether they just happen to be happen to be getting lucky with, it just happens to be a rising market or whatever the case may be. And then for those people who don't want to put in the time, because it is very time consuming, don't want to deal with the stress, it's for those people who should be more inclined to seek outside help.
I think also with a do-it-yourself endeavor, your goal can be surrounded around money and the value of the account, as opposed to when I think of our engagement with our clients, where we kind of have more of a conversation of goals, but like the underlying values that drive these goals.
Yeah.
What do you think of that in our engagement, Sean?
Well, I think the most value that any professional investor has working with their client is preventing the behavioral mistakes that come up. What was your question? Actually, I don't remember. I was going to answer your question.
It's
just the thought I had preloaded in my head.
I think so essentially when you do it yourself, the goal in itself is just like, let's make this account as big as possible. When we have an engagement with people, yeah, that's important, but like, what are you looking to really accomplish? What's the underlying values? How do you want these?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
you're too
sorry.
far away. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say what people's goals are when they set up an account, a do-it-yourself account. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'm inferring from my own experience. It's just like, I want to buy the stock because I want it to grow tremendously, and then I'll just be happier because the number is so much bigger than it was before.
Yeah, I think in the client discovery process, and we do that for sure with our clients, like we kind of let them self-vet and self-select in terms of, hey, we're not here to help you make as much money as possible. We're here to help you realize your goals. And so being facilitators of that conversation is, I think, extremely valuable for a person who wants to realize goals, right? Personal goals, life goals, family goals, not financial goals.
I think the important attribute of like learning the individual client's story.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Where do you aspire to be? What are your dreams? Like, what progress are you making on that? What have you been doing as a mechanism to help you accomplish that? I think unpacking that conversation really gives the purpose of why they do what they do, and then find the mechanisms to help them accomplish that. I think that's a big attribute, because otherwise it just becomes a game of money, of numbers, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding to get to meet a multitude of individual families and the uniquenesses and the stories that they've gone through. There's an attribution of the behavioral element of money. How did they learn about money as a family early as children growing up, and the pain points that are there. So a consideration for us when we give advice is to take note of the things that tend to work well, things to avoid, and just build and craft something so that they are more successful in the end.
Beautiful. Anything else to add?
All right. Good.
Well, if you like our podcast, it really helps us to like, share, and subscribe. We are trying to reach more people like you who are listening, and every little bit helps. Thank you for listening. I'm Anthony.
I'm Sean.
I'm AJ.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, AJ Sanson, and Anthony De Lazari, who are associate investment advisors for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisors only, and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.